So he's going through the 6 orders of the Mishnah. He's going through the 6 orders of the Mishnah and explaining why Yom Tov is bound up with the Tvur. And what's the essence of the answer in one word, in one sentence? Emunah sitacha, that's reflected in the pasuk. Emunah sitacha, the 2 words are bound, the faith of your times. They cannot be read separately at all, as opposed to as you analyze the other 4 words in the pasuk. Even though there are associations between the last 2, they can still be read as separate, but not emunah sitacha, which points to that Yom Tov, which is Zeroyim, Itecha, your times is Yom Tov, and Emunas is Seder Zeroyim. As the Rishalmi says, Shemaimin B'cha Yelomim V'Zeireya. So they're bound. That's the Shail of the Maimer, and it's also reflected in the Psukim, in Pashtus Aksuvim, that the Yomim Tovim are all bound with the stages of the agriculture, seeding and harvesting, in gathering. What's the nakud of the answer? Anybody? The guy just left. Okay. Aaron. The nakud of the answer, without the whole adichas of the hasbara, just the point of the answer.
Morning, Rabbi.
Sorry?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. No, that's a good answer. Good morning is nice. The nakuda is that avodah is ziru lachem tzedakah. Avodah is seeding. Avodah is bittul, putting the seed into the ground. B'derech klal, we don't see the results. We don't see literally the fruit of our labor. However, by Yomim Tovim, there's a ha'orah. And that's why the union of Simcha Dafke Yom Tov, because Simcha is Giloi. This is just the main point of the answer. And therefore, Emunah Sitecha, that the Emunah, which is Avodah of Zroyim, which is Avodah of Bittel, as implied by the word Emunah as well, although the Maimon doesn't point it out, but that's obvious. They're connected because even though in general we do not see the result, the Gilul Likus, as a result, the connection to the Eibusha that our mitzvahs create, but on Yom Tov there is a ha'orah, even in Zman HaGolus. That's why the 2 are connected. The Zriya blossoms and is realized to some degree in Yom Tov. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, all right. So that is the hasbara, the first 2 sedarim, Emunah Sitecha, Seder Zeroyim, and Seder Moyed. Isdalad explained Chaysen, which means strength, and how that refers to Seder Noshim. And the essence of the answer there is because where do we see the Chaysen of the Eibishter, the true greatness of the Chayzek of the Eibishter? Where do we see it? Leilam Hazeh, in what? In Heiloda, in birth. It's 2 things. The Maimoni says one thing, the fact that birth continues, you'd think it would weaken first generation, second one's weaker is not so. Although there's a general Yerid, but that's not mitzadat. So there's the fact that the species continues endlessly. That's a Gilui of Ein Sof. But then there's also, Chassidus speaks, the actual individual birth itself. is a Gilui of Ein Sof, virtually Yesh Me'ayin. And what does he say? It is an Avodah. What's the Avodah of Chais and of Seder Noshim and Avodah? It's what? As it applies to everyone.
Limud Torah.
Huh?
Limud Torah.
Not Stam Limud Torah. No, there's the Limud Torah in the way that God responds. That's the Ein Sof within Torah. You're learning Torah, that's Bakabala. But they betan l'sheni b'rasecha, you learn in such a way that Hashem is saying these words with you, so you're drawing into your Torah bligvo, the chaysen. You reveal the fire of Torah, alei kei dvarai ka'esh. Just to note what that means. I mean, it's not a metaphor you would use for Torah. Eish consumes, and learning is about filling. It's about filling the mind, answering questions, not about burning. And Yidalei Dvareka Eish, because the Pnimis is bligvul, and it literally burns, consumes, nullifies all gvul. Eish das lama, the Torah itself describes it as a fire, as black fire on white fire. Pashas Azinu. The fire of Torah is the bligvul of it. That's in Avodah, the union of Chais and of Seder Noshim. And then he said, the next word of the pasuk is Yeshua, which means salvation. That corresponds to which Seder in the Mishnah and the Shishas in the Mishnah. The next one, Nezikin, which damage laws. What's the connection between Yeshua and Nezikin? So he brought the Gemara from about Rabbi Yehuda. What does the Gemara say about Rabbi Yehuda and his generation, mind you?
And all they studied was Nezikin.
All they learned was Nezikin. The Gemara wonders there, how is it that Nisim happened to them? We learned everything, and it doesn't. Nisim don't happen for us. Even Uktzin, not Stam, but all kinds of Pirushim. The Gemara answers they had Mesidas Nefesh, but he's kind of das Bada. But why still did he learn? Why did he focus on Nezikin? As I think about it, the Rebbe's answer explains the Mesidas Nefesh answer of the Gemara. What was that kavanah of that generation of learning the Zikin that actually paved the way for the next generation to be able to learn all of Torah without hindrance? Because what's the thinking of Nezikin? What's the point of it? It's in order to, it says it there. It's the third line. Third line of that paragraph.
Destroy the klipa.
To mivatal the klipa. So because his generation was mivatal, slayed the dragons, so then the next generation, they were able to learn all the inyanim. They paved the way. And he says here that there's dalid avos nezikin, there are four categories of damages, as the Mishnah, as Seder Nezikin begins in Masechta Baba Kama, which correspond to, seems Chochma Bina and Tiferes and Malchus of Klippa, which spans the whole Eses Vidus. So that's the connection to Yeshua. Why? Yeshua is a Seder Nezikin. Because we are, through the limit Seder Nezikin, we are, let's finish the sentence, Pashut Kipshuta, saved from the klippas, from the negative forces. Yeah? Then next word in the pasuk, Chochmas, wisdom, they say that's the general translation. Wisdom. Of course, we know that Chochma means something specific, as we're going to see, Zek say to Kochim. So what's Chochma got to do with Kochim? I told you the Pasha the Pshat is because the laws are intricate, so it requires Chochma. What's the beer b'primis enyanim v'ayim b'zeh? The hine korban is kodshim mina birurim. What's the need of kodshim? It's to elevate the world, refine the world. We bring the behemah and we elevate it on the mizbeach as a pleasing aroma to Hashem. As a nasis, we're elevating not just the animal, because we also bring, as mentioned yesterday, all the other elements. All four elements of life are involved in bringing the korban. Obviously, the person, then there's the behemah, then there's the plant life. That's the mincha that accompanies every korban, and then there's the salt and wine for that matter, and then there's salt, which is doimim. So the Rebbe says in Tanya, every korban elevates and is connected to all other components of those four stratas of life, or layers of life. So it's birurim. What does it have to do with chokhmah? He now answers, "V'zel chokhmas zeh seder kodshim," because it says in Zayah, "Ki b'chokhmas beriru." In order to elevate and refine, you need chokhmah, which means bittul, as explained in Chassidus. It needs bittul to be able to extract, to be able to find and extract and differentiate between the nitzuz kedusha, the holiness, and the non-holiness. Because the non-holiness is very attractive and seductive. It needs bittul to know this is kedusha and this is not kedusha. It's not unlike, in order to paskin the din, you need Ruach HaKodesh, an element of siyata d'shmaya bittul. Because this svaras this way, svaras that way. To extract the halacha, to be discerning, and to say this and not that, that needs bittul. Because with seichel, everything can be justified. Shaul HaMelech had a whole cheshbon to spare Agag. Well, not actually Agag, but to bring the behemoths. He was missing the bittul. He was told not. He had a cheshbon that in this case, Adarabba, we're going to elevate him and use him. So that's why so that's why what? That's why Chachmas, that's the word in the pasuk, the fifth word, you say the kodshim. That's a very interesting thing now. When it comes to kodshim, the night follows the day. You bring a korban during the day. The day, it has to be consumed within the day. So the night that follows till dawn, really, but then the Chambo made a takana till midnight. First Mishnah in Shas. He mizach the bracha. So what kodshim, the night goes after the day. They would often quote that when he'd explain why the Farbrengens always happened after, not the night before, but the night following. It often mentioned that by kodshim, Karbonas, the night follows, they're not preceding it. But in nature, in Teva, the day described in creation, and that's how we count our days. Naturally, the day follows the night. It starts with Vaye'erev, Vayevoike. Why the distinction that kodshim are different? Answer. Creation's first reality is darkness, and then eventually it becomes light. Al derech klipa kodma lepri, that's similar to, the Zayar says that the formation of a fruit, the shell comes first. The klipa, the covering, the outside. Even though the whole point of it is the fruit itself, but the order in nature is that first the klipa, first night and then day. They are korbanos and Beis Hamikdash. Then comes avodah, and what's the avodah expressed in korbanos? So what do? Mizgala pri. We reveal the pnimius, the day, the fruit, the nitzutz kedusha. And then we reveal, unlike the way it is in nature, which is, what can you do? That's life. That's what people say. Along comes Avodah and Karbonos, you can change it all and transform it and reveal the Pnimius that was always there. And therefore, and then Avodah brings out that the Ikas, the Pnimius, the fruit, and that the Klippa, the covering, is secondary. So therefore, by Kodshim, what comes first day, that's the Ikar. And then there's also the union of the Klippa that's only there to bring out the mile of the day. The starting point is Kedusha, because that's what we're accessing. We're accessing immediately the Nitzvah's Kedusha, and that's our world. And the Klippa is there, it's something secondary. Not the Ikar, not the Pnimius. There to augment, to facilitate Avodah. That's all through Korban. Korban Kipshuta is Bittul. And Chochmah is Bittul. The Rebbe says in Tanya that every Yid is ready to give his life up for God because of the Nekudas HaChochmah that is the essence of the Neshama. It all begins with Chochmah Datzilus and even higher, but with Bittul, that's the core pintel Yid, is Chochmah. Which can never be extinguished. So I'll just share with you this, but you should share it your Sidorim. I'll say Bekitza, but it's worth rethinking, remembering it and sharing it. The whole Achma'anya is entirely puzzling from beginning to end, and there's 15 kashas, but I'll just ask the following. We say that this is the bread that they ate in Mitzrayim. Not true. We eat matzah because of what happened when they left Mitzrayim. It's a shocking statement. The next statement is an invitation. An invitation. You're 5 steps into the Seder. Nobody hears you now. You're inviting. And most puzzling is the third statement. That now we're here. Next year, slaves. Next year, free. B'nei Chayrin. Are we not celebrating freedom tonight? That statement destroys the whole Pesach. We just said in Kiddush, Man Cheruseinu. And now we declare emphatically, no, we're not. We hope to be next year. What in heaven's name is going on? And Bachlal, what does it have to do with Magid? This is not Magid. Magid begins with Manishtan, as the Torah says, Vigada Televinch. And finally, what's the connection between one statement and the other, the lumped in one paragraph, as if it's a developing theme. This is a bread in Mitzrayim, an invitation. Next year we should be free. And other kashas as well. The Nekuda is that this is an introductory paragraph without which we can't begin the Seder. And it answers thorny questions, disturbing questions that anybody, especially the intelligent child, because it's focused on the child, the cheder child is asking. And he has a very simple question. He cannot begin to understand what we're celebrating tonight. And his question is, the Eibishter gave us our freedom. The Eibishter gave us great wealth. What happened to it? Sitting at the table as a grandfather that was in Auschwitz. That was far, far worse than Mitzrayim. If the freedom was something that we attained through our own effort, good. Freedom comes and freedom goes. If the money was through our own effort, you make money, you lose money. But God granted it. Whatever God does is forever. How come this poor people, you see as a poor person at his Seder, he may be poor. Yes or no? You and I are living in Canada, so we can talk about freedom. What did Pesach mean for the last 2,000 years? What were they celebrating? And they did. They were Makai and Pesach in the stories, if you read in the camps. The bitter joke was that Mora we don't need, that we have plenty. But they smuggled a bit of, somehow some sawdust mixed with the flour, and they made matzah. And someone who knew the Seder by heart was saying it, and everybody sat there with open eyes in the dead of the night, exhausted, and observing the Seder. What are they observing? What's freedom? So these are disturbing questions that need to be addressed before the whole Seder begins. Makarepa, what's going on? What happened? It should be eternal. To answer this, Holach Manya was written. I mean, this is a revolution in Halach Manya. It's around for thousands of years. The Rebbe finally explains it. We start off saying, Halach Manya, Mitzrayim. This is the bread they ate in Egypt. Everybody knows we eat. As we say, Rabbi Gamliel says explicitly, if you don't quote that, you're not Yaitz the whole Haggadah, that you eat matzah because when they left, it wasn't. So what's Haggadah saying? The Haggadah are we saying we never left Mitzrayim. We left for Gashmias, but we're still in Mitzrayim, and many Mitzrayims to follow. That's shocking. Whoa, we never left? No. Next statement, invitation. No one hears you. What's the point? It's not an invitation. It's just saying the need to invite, because you never left. We're in Golus. There are poor people, the Gashmias and Baruchnis. The wealth didn't last either. It's true. The Shen is there. Yechal, Yesef, Yisra, Gashmi, Baruchni. Because he also asks, how could there be a Ben Rasha? The Rishonim all died. How do we produce that? There's poverty, physical and spiritual. So what are we celebrating? True, Hashat. The next statement: we're here and we're in Golos, but the key to redemption was given to us on Pesach. And what is that key? What is that key? What's the essence of Pesach? The essence is conveyed in our answer to the Rosh, which is also shocking. The Rosh, we tell them, had you been there, you wouldn't be slammed the door in his face. That's the way you answer a Jewish child. The Rebbe explains that there's actually an Alexander word. I found this from the Alexander Rebbe. He perished in the Holocaust himself. He could have been, he was given passage. He said, no, he's staying. Treblinka, no way. So he says the answer to Ben Rosh is fakert. It's the most embracing answer. Had you been there, you wouldn't have been redeemed, but you're not there. Before Yetzias Mitzrayim, Yidden sank to the 50th level, disappeared Jewishly. That is no longer possible. God guarantees it. This is the Chachma. The Nekudas HaChachma, the Nitzutz Kedusha, that is in every neshama, cannot be extinguished. This is the big Chiddush of Yetzias Mitzrayim. No Jew can disappear Jewishly, which 80% did prior to Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's why they had to leave in Kibaracham in such haste. They stayed a few minutes longer. They would have said, we're not going. They wouldn't have gone. Alter Ben Tanya. That's the whole simcha. So therefore, what's the Nekudah Pesach? We all have this Nitzutz Kedusha. Let's liberate. We need to complete the process and express it in a machshava dibur ma'aser actions and complete the Geula process, and therefore bring Mashiach now, so that next year we'll be sitting already in Eretz Yisrael. This is critical to understand what we're celebrating. In a word, we're celebrating the indestructible, the eternal. It's Leidas Am Yisrael, the word of the Navi Yecheskel. The birth, you're born a Jew, forever a Jew. And a righteous convert was also all along a Jew, and you can't change it, and that's what it is. So therefore, that's God's doing. You have no choice in that. No, you have no choice in your birth. That's Milamayla Lamata. Then, as we're learning in the Maimed, this is Kerla Los Aved of Tishrei, the whole of all these Maimorim. That must set in motion the Aved Milamata Lamai, which means to be really free. What does free mean? To do what you want? You end up in prison within 15 minutes. If you're honest, you could kill this guy. You want to steal that? I mean, the terrible typhus we have to get end us in prison. Free means fakert. Freedom means to reveal. What is free? To reveal the depth of who I am. And what's that? That's the depth. That's the deepest freedom, is the neshama. So let's do it. Let's now live authentically Jewish. In some area in our life where we had blocked our own identity, that's personal freedom, and that completes the redemption process. And that's the whole of it. And that's the whole thing of the Dalet cases. Which the Chachamim matter because overtly Pesach celebrates God's doing. We're Jewish. Celebration from above. Our Maimed, the Matzav, is a Matzav. Impoverished, we just are. And haste, we're taken quickly out. The Matzav describes the Matzav of Yidden. No desire, no longing, no ava, no yira. This one cannot be embellished because it was touch and go. Okay, we'll go. Or rather, we'll let you take us out. But then the Chom Misakan of yayin. Yayin is the opposite of wine in every possible way, in every way. The longer it steeps, the better it is. Every wine is different, and there's all kinds of grapes and wines. All matzahs taste the same. But wine is different because wine represents our avodah. That's what they're masak. It's not enough to celebrate tonight. I'm Jewish and that's it. You've got to invest in relationship. God wants to be part of your life. He wants your love. He wants joy. He wants your mind. Develop it. Grow. That's the Dalit L'shonos of Veitzesi, Vitzalti, V'galti, V'lokachti Eschem Lilam. It's a fourth lashon, which is my people, marriage, Har Sinai. That's where all this is going. Start tonight. Start tonight in revealing the neshama, in savoring your Yiddishkeit, in the geschmack and the enjoyment. Commit to learn. That's yayin. And each one in their pace. Stronger wine, weaker wine, sweeter wine. It's very individualistic, this journey. The essence is the same, but the same yid. That's the matzah. And now we all need to translate and express that in our own selves. And that's what the Chamim added, Torah Shebal Peh, to where this needs to go tonight. Okay, there's more hanichas, but this is, rethink it while it's fresh, not now we're learning. It's important to share the mind. It gives the whole context, the Seder, of the whole Seder and its challenges, and it's a different Seder than. It's Chelik Yud Zayin, I think. Look at the Sichos, Barichas Gedoyla, and it answers many other kashas there too. But that's too much to say. I'm just giving you this. So it's a foundational Sicha to learn on Pesach. He has klotz kashas, gewaltige kashas, and critical points in the Seder, and this one answer explains everything. You just learned it, yeah. But das, now we're up to das, Zeh Seder, no. Okay, all right. Hazeh said that Taharis, so the final word in the pasuk is das, which refers to Taharis, which is the laws of what? Tum and Tahara. What's the connection to das? Let's find out. Did you do Mashakasev Rambam? Like it's known that with Rambam writes, Shatum is v'Taharis gzeiris hakosev hein. The whole union of purity and impurity is a divine decree. They belong in the category of chukim, of laws that defy logic. Because tumah is not some dirt or excrement that is floating by under the water. Alexadis, no, I'm sorry, that can be removed with water. Just thinking of Allah. That can be removed, shetava, with water, with physical water. It's not. They're spiritual things, but they're divine decrees. By immersing in the mikveh, there's no change. Rather the other way. He became Tomei, there's no physical change in him. He's under the same canopy as a mess, or was touched by a sheretz, can wash it off, he's still Tomei, nitma. So what is it therefore in Aveda? Since there's no physical change in the Gzeres HaKosov, the whole union of Tum and Tahara, gewaltige Bier. Why don't we feel, why don't we see the change that Tumah brings, because it's from a madrega of Makif, a transcendent level. The fact we don't see the change, it's a much greater thing, not a conscious pneumistic change. And therefore, what's the antidote to Makifim de Klippa? Let's just address Makifim de Klippa a little bit. What does Makif mean? Yeah. How does Klippa exist? God doesn't want it. Makes the madrega of Makifim, the Klippa of Kedusha, Makif, then even Klippa has a place. In other words, the face of the infinite, and everything is tolerated because everything is insignificant. What's the Mashal Gashmi the Chassidus brings from Mishlei?
Spider in the palace.
Shmomes biyadayim tisveis v'behechli melech. A spider, if you have it in your, in your hand, you will remove it. But in the king's palace, it's there. Nobody notices it because the vastness of the palace, they won't even notice the cobweb and the spider. She has a place. Mepnimius in Makif, even Klip has a place, and Hama wanted to exploit that. Makifim the binash, and therefore destroy Eden. So what's the answer to this Makif? Let me make this clearer. Chassidus brings the Gemara in Brachas that Ganva Pomachtarte Rachmanakari, right? That a thief on the threshold, he calls out to the Eibishter to help him. We ask him, are you insane? You believe in God and you're stealing? If you believe in God, you know God said don't steal. So Chassidus brings that to say that it's makif, it just disconnects from his consciousness. He believes, but his behavior is somewhere else, and it even connects the two. But the pnimius, I don't know if it says Chassidus, but I saw it somewhere. Stama says, it's because of his emunah that he steals. Because of his emunah. Such a great God, you care about my little thing that I do. I'm insignificant. Adrab, it's the emunah. It's the makif. It's the makif which gives the highest to the clip, to his own attitude. Because God, I'm a little guy, I'm a speck, and you're the vast, infinite God. What difference does it make what I do? That's the cause of the sin. Is emunah. A makif dik emunah. So what's das? Das means intimate connection. Das means connecting personally. No, God wants you. Speaking with a Bachad on Shabbos of Fabrengen, he's telling me that a very bright boy and he's excelling well in learning, but he can't take davening. Can't take it. Every day the same words over and over again. Vifal Ashir. It's a huge burden. So we were talking, and I told them, this is what you and me and everybody has to be mizbeinin before you daven. Okay, so for those people who need, they don't have this problem. He's a bacher, he has no needs. Everybody else has a need, so we come every morning with a shopping list, so we daven. You don't have this problem. You should, but you don't, because give me. Sure. That's a good start. Davening as bakasha and asking for it's a mitzvah to say the rice. If you have a need and request, turn to God. We have needs, and you should. You need parnasa, and you need health, you need nachas from kids. We have a long shopping list of needs, but he doesn't. So what's davening? And what should it be for us to also, in addition to please grant me and give me? If the mizbeinen, this is what das. If the mizbeinen, the Eibishter wants to hear this from you. He chose to need, but that's the net result. He needs to hear you say you love him and you want him, and he wants to be part of your life. And his desire for you is beyond Bligvul. You said it this morning. He wants to hear it at Mincha and then at Ma'ariv and this morning again. And every word of it is everything to him. That's Das. And Das is the personal connection. Just quickly, we conclude that I've told you this. What Groening used to say in Lubavitch, and he has the big schus that the Rebbe quoted him by Fabrengen. It was Rav Perlov in Australia, wrote the Sipurim, and he wrote this Mashal of Das, and the Rebbe quoted of all the stories, the 1,000 stories in that book, and everybody wrote, just the one thing the Rebbe quoted is the following, that Groening used to say in explaining what is Das, with a Mashal. I start telling you, you're going to remember, of a Yeshuvnik, that an illiterate Yeshuvnik, he has hires and malamet that teaches children. The man cannot read. As it used to be, the Yeshuvniks. So one day a letter comes from the city. He can't read it. He gives it to the Melamed to read it. The marshal. So the Melamed reads the letter, and it's a neighbor writes, the neighbor of this guy's father writes to the Yeshuvnik, I'm sorry to tell you, your father passed away. So the Melamed reads and the Yeshuvnik faints. End of story. So Greinem asked L'chaira, who understands really the story, what happened? The Melamed, he read, he doesn't faint. The Yeshuvnik is only hearing it from the Melamed, he faints. Why? The terrorist says, because it's his father. So Greinem used to say, a mimer is not a letter, what's doing in Atzilus, in the Seder Staushelis, letters from heaven. A mimer that says, my father talking to me, be'emes. When we learn a mimer, we have to be mizbeinen. That's when you daven also. The Rebbe is saying the mimer to me, in order that when I daven, I know that the Eibishtim says das. It's my personal God. Keli, Zeh Keli. Van veyo anivu hu bewan lekei avi. If it's tradition, my father's God, I exalt God. So the Shalom, famous Shalom's word. Anivu hu is when it's Keli, it's my God. So what's the answer to Makifim, the Klippa? Das! The vast God, you're right, but this vast God wants to be part of your life. That's Mevatel Din of Tumah.